Hello and welcome to Chatz, a television podcast, season 16, Couch Madness. 16 shows enter, one emerges as the show we will watch for the remainder of our season. Who will win, who will lose, who will die? My name is Magellan, and they like to think they have some powers of deduction. It's out.
Hey, my powers of deduction tell me that this is going to be one of the best matchups on Couch Madness.
It's definitely an interesting one, huh? Some kind of creepy clue shows.
Magellan's prompt was to not say the word mystery this week.
You got me.
Creepy clue shows. Yeah, there's a joke in there about Tron, creepy clue. Clue's one of the bad guys from Tron Legacy.
Oh, sure.
It's all in there. I'm not going to
Tron
make
was
it.
the bad guy. Oh, no, he fights for the users.
He fights for the users. Come on now.
Yeah, that's my bad. I'm so sorry.
It's a leftist text.
Okay, sure. Yeah, Tron is a leftist text. That's right.
I got finally an audio clip of Magellan saying Tron is a leftist text.
Yeah, Tron.
We have a couple of segments we got to get to, Magellan.
Yeah, let's do that. First segment is hello.
Hi. What's new in your life? What's exciting? What do you want to tell the listeners and me about?
I don't know. Same old, same old. I'm about to get a week off from school, so everything's kind of geared towards looking forward to that. But things have been chill. Yeah.
Good. I'm glad. I love chill. Chill is good.
What about you?
Setting myself up with things to look forward to. I got a trip in March. I got a trip at the end of February. Work is boring. I've been on that exercise kick. Things are going solid. I'm still doing the Oscar roundup. Trying to watch all the Best Picture noms. I got 4 left.
Yummy.
Only 4 left. Anatomy of a Fall, if you're curious. Killers of the Flower Moon, Poor Things, and The Zone of Interest are still on the docket. I might see Poor Things with a coworker next week. We have to confirm things because that one's still in theaters. Okay. The Iron Claw is coming to digital soon. That's a movie that's not nominated for Best Picture that I'm excited to watch.
That's the Inspector Gadget spinoff?
Oh my god, it is now. Whatever it was before is irrelevant because it's now an Inspector Gadget spinoff.
Aw, Poor Things. Anybody ever say the title like that?
Oh my god, get this guy out of here.
Aw, Poor Thing.
Aw, the whole, what are you, the holdovers? There is a part in the holdovers where someone's like, oh, so you guys are the holdovers. I was like, shut up. Delete that from the script. Come on. Do you know Dr. Claw's real name, Magellan?
It's like probably Octavius Claw or something like that.
No, your life's going to change after this. There was a part of your life before you knew Dr. Claw's real name.
Mm-hmm. What is it?
Okay, it's actually different depending on which series.
Which version? Yeah, okay.
Known as Sanford Skolex in the first live-action film. Awesome.
The Matthew Broderick movie?
Yep.
Okay.
George Claw in Gadget and the Gadgetinis, which is fake. Why did you write that on the wiki? Oh my god, that's real. Okay, great. And Irving Bolognius Claw Jr. That's the one you want in the 2015 series. Irving Bolognius.
Wait, okay, but the Matthew Broderick movie was not the origin of Inspector Gadget. Wasn't it a cartoon? Yeah, it was an 80s cartoon.
Yes, before, the cartoon is great. The OG cartoon. 83 is earlier than I thought. Oh my god. I must have been, I think the cartoon that I liked is no, that is the one. Wow, I think just like Deke Entertainment did really good cartoons in the 80s that looked kind of timeless.
Mm-hmm.
But that is the one that I watched. I thought there was a 90s cartoon for some reason.
There may have been.
There may have also been. Okay. Oh, there totally was. Okay. Great. Welcome back to the Inspector Gadget cast. I'm Gadget. He's the Gadgetinis. What are the Gadgetinis? Oh, they're like tiny Inspector
Gadgets.
Little
gadgets, yeah.
Oh, that's kind of cute. It's a sequel to the OG series.
Tag yourself, I'm Fidget.
I'm
the orange Gadgetini.
What's the other one called?
Digit.
I'm Inspector Gadget. Fuck Digit. Real quick, Magellan Fantasy Basketball update. How'd you do this week?
I won. But
I won. You fuck.
Well, there's somebody in our league who doesn't like check it very much, and so
you're playing that person.
I was playing that person, and I almost went 5 of 9 of the 9 scoring categories, which would have been rough against somebody who's like not checking it and doesn't have a full roster, because 2 of the scoring categories are like your scoring efficiency, and one of them is the number of turnovers your team has. So conceivably, someone who like doesn't field a lot of players could be more efficient and have fewer turnovers than you. And also, this other person has James Harden, and James Harden by himself was getting more 3-pointers than my team was.
That's
and
bonkers.
It's like, come on, man. But, the Vancouver Vampires, we turned it around, so everything's okay. Have I told people how to do the Vancouver Vampires cheer, by the way?
No, you haven't. Please tell us.
All right, so if you want to cheer for the Vancouver Vampires, there's 2 components. There's the oral component. You go Vancouver Vampires, Vancouver Vampires. Okay.
I like
now
it.
There's also a physical component. So you lift 2 hands in front of your face with your index fingers pointed up, and then you create a V in front of your mouth with your index fingers.
When
you say Vancouver, and then when you switch to vampires, you like flip your hands over forward, and those index fingers turn into your teeth. Yeah, it's your fangs.
Vancouver Vampires. I'm doing it right now.
Vancouver Vampires. So if you want to support the Vancouver Vampires, wherever you live, we're an expansion team, so we're looking for fans in all major markets. Yeah, just do the Vancouver Vampires cheer.
Amazing. I really like that. I need a cheer for the Epic of Gilgamesh Alexander, because you just have to read all of Gilgamesh every time you want to support our team. The Epic won 5-3 this week. It was actually surprisingly tight because, again, I was playing the friend who got the draft first, so he just had some really good people. So he won on 3-pointers and STs. Steals and blocks by quite a bit. So my team's all right. I might need to work out some people who steal and block better.
It's kind of tough to find. It's like tough to trade for that.
Yeah, it's not a thing you can kind of like guarantee you're going to get also.
Right.
But I'm happy with my team right now. I want LeBron James to be playing again so I can get some big scores, but he's been on a bit of a break this week. That's the fantasy basketball update. Keep stay tuned. Keep stay tuned. Last but not least, the Simpsons Meme Initiative. I know people care about this one. I've been looping back a little bit as I dive into season 7, which is excellent so far. I have been looking at like best of lists, trying to make sure that I watch all the ones people really like. I went back and rewatched Homer at the Back because people talk about it so much, and I watched it years ago.
Yeah.
No, it's good. It's quite good. I'm not here to fight you. I don't know if it's goated with the sauce. I think it's just like it must have been. It must have been amazing. I thank you. It must have been amazing at the time with all the cameos, and you're like, oh my god, these guys are literally on TV right now. Like that's so weird. It's just very absurd. I don't always like when The Simpsons is like pure absurdism. Like I forget which one of them drinks like the serum that makes his head he has oh god, gigantism, like that whole thing. It's just like it's fun. It's a very funny visual, but like not all the jokes landed for me. I think I also
don't you love an episode that ends with a song that recaps the episode though?
That was really good, and Disney Plus really didn't want me to watch that because it's over the credits, so they're like, "You want to go to the next one?" And I was like, "No, I want to watch it."
Done it. The power plant, I won it, and something all the while. That's a good song.
It's good. It's very good. I remember to like tell them to let me listen to it though. I'm gonna go back to season 2 real quick to check out 2 cars in every garage and 3 eyes on every fish, which is the origin of Blinky. And I think I also am gonna go back to Flaming Moe's because I don't remember anything about Flaming Moe's.
Oh, Another one that has a song that summarizes the plot.
Season 3 loved that. Season 3 was big into
It's
songs.
It's a Cheers song parody.
God,
actually.
the Cheers send up in like season 5 or 6 is so fucking funny. Where they bring all the people in Cheers and like Norm gets really drunk and they're all like, "Get down, get him!" He's like too drunk, he's gonna fight someone. So good. But in terms of season 7, Radioactive Man, it's fine. I think it's overhyped.
Okay.
The goggles do nothing. Yep, good line. Bart Sells His Soul, incredible episode. Like so creative and funny and like good. Lisa the Vegetarian, better than I expected.
Solid up.
And then I watched Treehouse of Horror 7 last, which was another solid one. There's no bad Treehouse of Horror. I still think 5 is the best one so far, but they're all good. And going up, I have King Size Homer, Mother Simpson, which in my notes you wrote you're gonna cry about Mother Simpson.
Mother Simpson.
That's the one with Homer's mom.
Oh, I don't know if I stand by that.
Okay.
You're gonna cry, but it's a good one.
And then eventually I'll get to A Fish Called Selma, which I've been really looking forward to, so I can see Dr. Zaius.
Dr. Zaius.
I've been trying to get there for that's one that's been on my list high for a while. Anyways, the initiative continues on. I have not felt any burnout yet. There's a lot of other things in my life that I felt burnout with where I'm like, I don't want to do this thing anymore. But posting about it and talking about it on the pod here has really motivated me to keep doing this. And, at least if I can get through season 10, I will feel complete and happy about this project. But nice. We're still cooking. Let's talk about our main event. Yeah, you want to do it?
So this week we are entering into our final matchup of round 2 of the bracket. This is our 6th seed, Death Note, against our 3rd seed, Fringe. A contentious matchup to be sure. So first we'll discuss Death Note Season 1, Episode 2, called Confrontation, which introduces our other deuteragonist, you could say.
Deuteragonist.
Dude, come on, bro. Or broderogonist. That's a better word than deuteragonist.
Yeah, that's it.
And then we will discuss Fringe, Season 1, Episode 2, The Same Old Story, which kind of isn't the same old story, because it gets a little unusual, okay? It's Fringe, baby. Anyway, let's talk about Death Note first. So Confrontation was written by Toshiki Inoue, directed by Tomohiko Ito. It aired on December 9th, 2003. Alan, what happened in Confrontation?
In this episode, the series of mysterious deaths catch the attention of world-renowned detective L, who confronts the killer on live television.
All right, so you're new to Death Note.
Correct.
In our discussion of the first episode, we were a little bummed that L was not present in the pilot. L is set up in this episode, and he is the detective who's basically hired by like the UN of this world.
The ICPO.
The ICPO, to figure out who's causing all of these mysterious deaths and how do we stop them. So what do you think of the episode overall? What do you think of the introduction of L and all that?
I thought that this episode was brilliantly paced and thrilling top to bottom. This is like, I'm truly going into this with such a fresh perspective, and all of the goings on between L and the reveal of who he is and what he's capable of. It felt pretty campy, and I was into all of it, but then in the last 10 minutes of the episode, we get this masterclass in villain establishment or like you said, deuteragonist establishment of, hey, this is him talking directly to our main character. I have your number. I know where you are, and here's how I know it. And I know this is Death Note doing what Death Note does, and it's working for me, man. That whole I know you're in Kanto because I broadcast the thing that says global broadcast and it's not global, and you watched it and then you killed a guy who's not me, and you're stupid for doing that because now I just narrowed you down from the whole world to a district in Japan in the span of about 10 minutes. Is so satisfying. And the fact that Light is cool, the game is on, and he's not he's scared for maybe 3 seconds, and then he's like, all right, I already have a plan, you're down, you're done. I'm like, I love these freaking boys. They're so devilish. They're delightfully devilish, Seymour. They really are. I just found it joyous and fun. I don't know. What about you?
Yeah, I really, this is the core of what makes Death Note fun, and continues on the kind of campiness that we liked about the first episode, and also the way that the show cares about its rules, and how it plays on those rules to create kind of thrilling scenarios. Because what we see here in this episode, in the showdown between Light and L, is it's not introducing anything new about how the Death Note works. It's more just like, well, let's see it play out in this particular scenario, and how do the characters manipulate what they know, how do some characters find out things that they didn't know, etc. And it, even though I knew what was going to happen, it was still fun to watch L put Light in a position where he makes a mistake, and like a really crucial big mistake. And you get to watch the whole time like, oh, you are getting played right now, man. And you are falling for it, hook, line, and sinker. And it's really entertaining to watch a character like Light, who's so methodical, and for a lot of the episode, all that you really see him do is think about, how do I hide the Death Note? Because he learns from Ryuk that if anybody else touches it, they'll be able to see Ryuk, and presumably if there are other Shinigami in the world, they can see them and use the Death Note or whatever. And so there's this whole elaborate thing of like, I created a false bottom in my drawer, and if the wrong person opens it, it'll blow up and blah, 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 blah. And you're like, okay, cool. And then he immediately gets duped when he's brought into this kind of like ego battle. And the moment where he writes what he thinks is L's name, scrawling it super big across the notebook page.
Yeah.
Completely losing his composure. That was such an awesome moment to show you this guy can really get under Light's skin and pose an actual threat to his plan, because he is getting him to make really big mistakes. So I enjoyed that a lot.
Lind L. Taylor, the most fake name I've ever seen. And I knew it. I was like, that's obviously a fake guy that he's going to think is L, but I didn't think like he would immediately. That seemed like an honestly foolish play to immediately be like, cool, here you are, done, kill you. Like, no, dude, you're being played for a fool. Anyone could have read that. But we're setting up Light as this sort of like, not only crafty and like, you know, 3-dimensional chess guy, 4-dimensional chess. He's smarter than 3. He beat the 3rd dimension. But he's also somebody who like fixates on really small details, like the choice to like really go into detail on how the false bottom of the drawer works, and how if you hit the bottom with a pen, it doesn't explode, and only he knows which pen works, and all that stuff is like the workings of a sociopath, right? Like nobody would ever think to do that, even though Ryuk is like, the hardest thing that every Death Note user has to deal with is hiding the Death Note. And he's like, all right, cool, I'll put it exactly where people expect to see it. I'll leave the keys in there so they think that they're finding something secret, and they open it, oh, it's my diary, and then they'll go away. Oh, but if they don't go away, then they might find the false bottom. Well, if they lift it, then they're dead. Like, exactly how chess works, where he's like thinking 2, 3, 4 moves ahead, and beyond that, nobody could possibly catch him.
Right.
No human being on Earth could catch him.
Right.
I also like that this episode expands the scope of the world a little bit. Like I mentioned, we get the ICPO, the International Criminal Police Organization, by the way, if you were curious.
Yeah.
They call them Interpol at one point, or they're related to Interpol, I guess. But that's all very interesting. And like the introduction of L is so much better than I could have anticipated, because it's like, oh shit, we really got to find this freaking Kira guy who they introduced the name Kira, which I'll talk about in a sec. We need somebody who's smart enough and who doesn't like, who he's not gonna be able to find the name of. Well, L's on the case already. All right, well, is L gonna come to the meeting? Absolutely not. Here's this guy that knows L, and this guy can talk to him. And then L comes in with a voice modulator, and it's like, yeah, guys, I got it. I already know where he lives. He's in Japan. Don't worry. Like, we already know that L is ahead before he explains how. And so we are like the ICPO people being like, what the... I thought we were the puppets, you know, the puppet masters, but this guy is clearly already ahead of us. And again, L Light parallels become more and more and more apparent as he starts to reveal his plans and stuff. I thought that was all super duper good. I love that L is not your traditional good guy, right? He's not like, I'm going to beat him because I'm good. The final shot of the episode is the two of them, you know, faces in parallel in profile saying, I'm going to defeat him because I am justice. And they're both saying that. And you're like, oh, they're both the bad guy.
Right. Yeah, what's really cool about their rivalry is that I guess we're on the side of L, right? Because we don't want Light to have unmitigated god powers to murder whoever he wants. And I think we can agree that, like, no one man should have all that power, is essentially the idea here. But you're not certain, like, if L had received the Death Note, who's to say if he would have started on the same path or not? And they set up really clearly in that ICPO scene, L is not choosing cases based on like what'll help the world. He only chooses the cases that are the most interesting to him and the most challenging. So it's like this really, it lines up also, I was thinking, with the fact that Light continues to be portrayed as a high achieving student. And he makes the point to Ryuk that he only has a certain amount of time that he can write in the Death Note every day because he has to keep his grades up. And there's this weird kind of commentary that's happening about like the public education infrastructure that creates individuals like Light, where you say, okay, it's like hyper competitive. We're rewarding kids based on achievement and based on like saying the right thing, responding in the right way or whatever. And so you end up creating a world that's run by or influenced by people who are like extremely capable strategic thinkers, but who have not had meaningful education in like ethics or how to think about humanity and be a good person.
It's pure competition.
It's It's just competition, intellectual competition in its purest form. And that is the core conflict between our two main characters. So it's really fun to watch, and there's also, I think, kind of this satirical angle to it in how the protagonists are introduced and how they're pitted against each other.
Yeah, I didn't consider the educational aspect of it, but I think that's also really smart. Like, what is the system that built people like Light and L, honestly? You know, what ambition was instilled in them at a young age, and by who? We don't get to see much of their families at all. I mean, we know that Light has a mom and a sister. In this episode, we meet his sister, and it's like beyond that, there's no indication that like anything other than just the way he was taught in school led to this personality type developing, and like nature versus nurture, all that stuff. That's something I hope the show gets into a little more. I know next episode we're also going to introduce another like major character, Roy Pember, who people like a lot or have strong feelings about. And his contribution to the investigation. So I'm curious then if it's like it's Light versus L, and then everybody else is circling the two of them, or like how that plays out. I wanted to talk briefly about the directing, because we got a great question on the Discord from listener of the podcast, David, who asked, how do the directorial choices in Death Note impact the pacing of the story for you? Are you okay living in the suspense of each moment, or do you think you'd get tired of it? How does it compare to other half-hour shows considered? That's a great question, especially about how does it compare to other half-hour shows we've done. I think this is borderline faster paced than The Tick. It's kind of fascinating. And maybe that's just more dialogue and there's no like jokes in this, but every scene in Death Note is like, here's what's going on. Here's what's being said. Don't worry about setup or build up. Like, it feels it feels like you're reading a manga. Like, I don't know how directly they are adapting, but when I read a manga, I kind of just like sometimes will, if I'm reading fast, like gloss over some of the little line choices and just be like, okay, what's the story being told here? And Death Note feels like that. It's just everything serves a purpose. It's almost like it's being directed by someone like Light, who's like, all you need is the important stuff. We got to get you there as soon as freaking possible. And I don't know if I'm going to get tired of that, because when I finished this episode, I felt like I could watch 8 more back to back and not be tired of it.
Right.
Like, that pacing keeps my, like, I guess the ADHD in my brain very much fed and satisfied. And I'm like, okay, I'm just completely locked in. This is so engaging all the time. But I do understand how that could make some people like shy away from it or get tired.
Yeah, it was interesting to hear you use the word mystery show to describe this at the beginning, which I think was you teasing, but also it made me think about, like, how would you characterize the genre here? And I think the direction does a lot to, instead of fit it into mystery, fit it more into like it's an action show, maybe even suspense, but only sort of kind of, because you're not really supposed to be solving something as you watch this. Like, you have all of the information that they want you to have, and they don't give you any information that you could use to get more information, except like you could maybe prefigure the thing that they're about to tell you. And I think the show does a really good job of like moving very quickly but very slowly giving you information, so that it's like, hey, look at this, okay, take a half a beat, I bet you know what we're going to do next, boom, here it is. It's big, it's a big splash of it. And so it's very satisfying in that way, as an audience member, because they keep doing these big explosive moves that you feel like you're figuring out, but you're not really figuring them out in a meaningful, like connecting the dots on the yarn board or whatever sort of way. You're not really a detective in this story. It's more like you're watching a car chase and you're like, oh shoot, I bet they're gonna drive up that ramp and crash into the helicopter, and then they do it and you're like, I knew it. That's like kind of what's happening. So I remember enjoying that style of direction when I first watched the show, and I think if you have the right frame of mind about what it is the show's trying to accomplish, then I don't think it wears on the viewer if you sort of take it as it is and don't expect it to be doing something different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've watched plenty of anime that burn their pacing really early and then can get boring for various reasons. But I think also knowing that Death Note is like on the shorter end of like a full anime series is like helpful to me, because I'm like, this can only go so far. We're not going to get like 8 seasons of will they, won't they catch light, you know? Like, this has to conclude at some point. So I think that helps me too. Speaking of the style of the show and the way it works, we also had a comment from a friend of the podcast, Old as Your Omens, who had a note about this. So they said it's a beautifully drawn manga and anime in the shonen style with a lot less of a comedic bent, as we mentioned. It's very beautiful and shadowy and sexy, and that influences the way that the anime feels, but with an absence of a lot of watercolor elements that they really like in things like shoujo manga and anime. Thoughts on the way animation and subject matter differ between these genres, and comedy and drama, and how that affects the experience. Now, Magellan, I know you don't have a ton of familiarity with the shoujo genre, but I'm sure you can imagine a Sailor Moon, for example, as just like a counter to Death Note. And for me, the biggest difference is color, like just use of color and palette of color, because Death Note is a black and gray and brown show. It's like kind of ugly in some ways. Right. Yeah. And it's supposed to feel like that so that it feels like a city. It feels like, you know, regret and
it's like vaguely noir-esque in its palette sometimes, I think is part of the intention.
And its animations are pretty sparse. Like, there's a scene in the whole thing where Light Ace explaining the drawer, where it just pans across him and Ryuk sitting there and nothing's moving except the camera. And I was like, this is both a budget saving method and like, you're just supposed to be listening right now. There's nothing to look at because this guy is just talking to another guy. Whereas I'm sure like a comedy anime could very easily be like, let's see the faces, let's see the reactions. But like, everything is very pose based, if that makes sense, in Death Note, which I kind of like. It's very of its time in that way. But I really like the way it looks.
I mean, I think it's also purposefully like doing a pacing thing or like a rhythm thing where it'll give you kind of slow, meditative, still moments and then immediately punctuate those with like a huge physical gesture, or like there are often these very quickly rising tilt shots, or I don't know, just kind of like splashy moments that almost feel like punchlines to those kind of meditative exchanges. So there is comedy in that. Like, I think this is supposed to be funny. I actually don't know. I think that was something we were talking about with 6. but like the way that it's doing that comedy is different than, like you're saying, something that's meant to be more colorful, that is meant to consistently convey like, hey, the tone of this is lighthearted and fun and these characters are silly. And Death Note is more like, here's some serious information. Oh, think about this for a second. And I will never get blown up by my own drawer because I'm too much of a genius.
Exactly, yeah. That's not a thing a person says, so there's like I think it's absurdity. I think there's definitely a comedy to it, but earlier you were talking about like how do you define the show genre-wise? And I think for me, like psychological thriller covers it. Because psychological thrillers can be campy and ridiculous. I think that ridiculousness though keeps me engaged because especially nowadays, like so many psychological thrillers are like incredibly bleak and sad and like about the failures of society. And Death Note is almost like throwing up the cards in that situation and being like, everyone's effed up, everyone's weird and confused, and we're all just kind of circling the drain around these two like genius people and watching them do what they're doing. Are one of them going to catch the other one? Who knows? The chase is on. Like it allows you a distance from its violence and from its systemic commentary that makes it very palatable, I think, for like its teenage audience.
That's a great point.
Thank you. Last point about Death Note question. I guess we can talk about this one in the second half, but Ryan S. asks or says, I'm curious about Death Note coverage because Alan hasn't seen it and Magellan has, and that's a rare dynamic for the pod, for sure. It would also be nice to have a walkthrough of the show that holds a pretty special place in people's heart, but one that people are also pretty critical of due to the back half. And if Death Note doesn't make it, what would be the anime you think that Chatz could ever actually cover? I guess we'll have to see if it makes it, first of all.
Yeah, I think to address the first reflections there that Ryan was sharing, I would definitely, part of what's interesting to me about going through Death Note, one part of it is the fun of like, I've seen it, Alan hasn't, oh, what'd you think of that? I think that's more fun as a listener maybe than as me.
Yeah, for sure.
Because like the conversation with you is fun, but like the seeing a thing I've seen before is not as thrilling. Because my experience of this episode was, I wasn't surprised by the moments. It was more like, yeah, that is pretty smart. Oh, Light, you fucked up. And that's kind of more like blithely entertaining. But I am interested in, now that I'm, I think when I first watched Death Note, I don't remember how old I was. I was in college, I think. And I'm a little more of a thoughtful consumer of media now, I think. Yeah. And I'm interested in like going back through it and following the arc of the show, seeing what's working and revisiting that back half, which I remember being pretty dull. But like maybe it's actually good or better than I thought, or maybe the way that it's not good is interesting, or I don't know. So that is enticing to me for sure.
Definitely. And in terms of other anime we would cover, I kind of want to stray away from your traditional shonen if we were to do something like that, just because I think a lot of them, while very good, are like, they tend to fall into the same types of patterns after a while. Like, I've been really interested in rewatching Yu Yu Hakusho as an adult, because I loved that show as a kid. And I've seen a lot of people say recently that, like, it holds up remarkably well. I would really love for you to watch Revolutionary Girl Utena, but, like, it's pretty dark, and, like, the subject matter might be a little heavy for us to cover in some contexts. Although it is also light. I know that there is like so much fucking conversation in our Discord about like, it's the funniest anime ever, but it's also full of trauma because people don't like to hold those two ideas in their head at the same time. I think that, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that like I would be interested in. I think we might even get a kick out of something more recent, like Vinland Saga, which is an anime I have not seen, but is a great, really well regarded. And it's about like a Norse tale told through like a humanist lens. Like, we're learning about Vikings in a realistic, like historically accurate way, and telling a story about that. I think that could be fun. I don't know. I would personally lean realistic if we went for an anime coverage, like a more realistic series. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I just haven't watched anime in a long time. So I don't really have a strong opinion about, stylistically what I think we would cover or not. I'd be interested in doing a little more exploration in that space and trying some things out and, deliberating a bit more. But I am sort of deferring to your taste there, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I like haven't seen that I think would be really fun for the two of us, and then there's stuff that I'm like, maybe people would like to see us do certain ones, but I'm pretty picky about what anime I watch these days. So I don't mean to be like, I'm better, but like the stuff that people like, I don't, it's very, very rare that I like it.
Yeah.
He says as I'm currently trying to finish Jujutsu Kaisen, which is like the biggest anime out there right now. I do like that one because it's got rules up the wazoo.
Yeah, I kind of just want to watch Science Gate again, personally, but
I'm down. Especially now knowing that what the arc is supposed to be, I would probably like it more as an adult. Sheesh. Although I have problems with its portrayal of trans women. Oops.
Oh, you're right. Yep.
And I heard that. I know. I watched
right.
Steins Gate Zero as it was coming out, and immediately, like 2 episodes in, burned out. I was like, they're treating her worse.
Oh,
in this.
never mind. You're right. Never mind.
So it's just that's like the one huge stain on an otherwise fantastic series that makes me really sad.
Yeah, no, never mind.
Hoy. You want to talk about our second show this week? Oh wait, I have one more note. I have notes about Death Note. Kira, Kira. Come the fuck on, Death Note. Really? That's why they call him Kira? Is because it sounds like the English word killer in a Japanese accent? Are you joking? Are you doing a comedy joke with me? That's brilliant. I love that. I never knew that. This is the first time they say it, and I was like,
I honestly forgot. I mean, it's such a thing in anime where, like, they act like English sounds cool.
Yes.
I guess it has, like, cultural cachet or whatever, and I can understand thinking that things in another language sound cool, but obviously as an English speaking viewer, it's like, well, that's not cool. I like Japanese. That sounds cool to me.
Exactly.
So it's funny.
That's actually the only one I had. I said everything. Oh, I was like writing my out loud reactions to the end of this episode where when he kills Lindell Taylor, I said, "Oh shit, that's sick!" And then when he's like, "I know where you are," I said, "Yo!" Any other notes?
I just love the character of Ryuk, and I love that his role in the story is basically the audience surrogate character to kind of sit back, chomp on apples, and say, "Wait a minute, but what if somebody figures out there's a false bottom on the drawer?" And then Light explains it, and he's like, "Oh, okay, got it. But be careful with that, because you might hurt yourself." Okay,
yeah.
sounds good.
Ryuk is kind of just us being like, "Huh, this is interesting."
Yeah, and I love it. I love it so much.
Anything else?
Cool. No, that's all I got. You want to talk about Fringe?
Fringy. Yeah, I'd love to talk about Fringy.
Okay, tell me about the title and people who made it and stuff.
So it's season 1, episode 2, The Same Old Story, and it was written by Jeff Pinkner, J.J. Abrams, Alex Kurtzman, and Roberto Orsi. It was directed by Paul A. Edwards, and it aired September 16th, 2008. Magellan, what happened in The Same Old Story?
In this episode, a woman gives birth to a baby who ages 80 years in just a few minutes. Olivia soon finds connection between the incident and a serial killer she had been chasing.
Oh, boy. This episode, man, I'm charmed. I find Fringe incredibly charming in its ambitions to be a modern day X-Files,
Yeah, what a thing they're doing here, huh?
Episode 2 starts with a graphic scene of a baby clawing its way out of a woman's stomach and then aging from 1 to 80 and dying. It's so gruesome. Almost comically so.
Yeah,
it's played very seriously, but you have to appreciate the ambition here. What did you think?
I really think it is good, and also I'm not a big fan of body horror stuff. Like, I have a very low tolerance for it. I'm also really put off by, like, this sort of it's a serial killer guy, and he's killing all these women, and kind of like the pregnancy horror thing. And somehow this episode manages to package a bunch of things that I find super off-putting and like don't want to watch on the television screen in a way where I walk away from it being like, that was a pretty good episode of TV. That part where they like fully pulled an eyeball out of somebody's face, that was really interesting.
Oh,
and it's like, what are you doing to my brain, Fringe?
Yeah, because it makes that stuff
about,
because it approaches that stuff not in a way. This is, maybe there's a bigger point to be made here. But it approaches its violence in a very clinical way, where like Walter kneels down next to a decaying 80-year-old body and says, "We're gonna need to do some tests. I need a lab." And it's like, dog, that's the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. And you're like, we should study this. And then you do this whole thing where you pull an eyeball out of someone and put on these like VR goggles so you can see their last moments before death. Like, what? It normalizes like absurd violence or absurd body horror, like you said, in a way that almost is beautiful to me. I never watched the Hannibal series, but I know that that's another show that very much like turns gruesome body horror into aesthetic beauty. And I find it really interesting, and I did not expect Fringe to do that. I have a lot of problems with this episode too, but I thought that while it was super duper duper violent, I was like, this is working for me because they're coming at it from not from a like, look how fucked up way this is, but more like, we have to do a job. This is horrible, and we have to still do a job.
Right. Yeah. And I agree with you. It's definitely not as good as the pilot for me. And I think it's not an episode I would ever want to watch again. I can't even necessarily say like I recommend it, but like you're saying, the way that they do these kinds of gruesome, creepy things, it never feels like they're relishing that to me. It always feels like, well, we're telling this mad science story, and we need to show you enough of this for you to understand what's going on. We need to show you, like, he's jabbing the syringe in the lady's neck. We need to show you he's lifting the scalpel to her lip so that you know that he's about to do this thing. And then we're going to cut away because, like, this isn't a blood splurting, rip the face open kind of show. This is like you were saying, it's clinical because it's about mad science, and it's about the ideas and the science fiction of it instead of the horror of it. It just so happens that the horror is a part of you understanding mechanically how this is working. Yeah. So at least from that perspective, I was pleasantly surprised that an episode that like was full of things that really, really grossed me out. I left it being like, okay, yeah, and what's episode 3 about? Give me some. Yeah, give me some more.
I'll take one more of those, please.
Yeah. But let's talk about the episode in more depth. What were the things you said that you had some issues with it? I'm curious to kind of get those out of the way up top.
So fundamentally, biggest issue is that, like, from a storytelling perspective, this was functioning as a second pilot for Fringe. Because the network felt like not everybody, we want you guys to have a second pilot. This is like a Fox, from above network note. We need a second pilot. Okay, we're gonna do a villain of the week episode, but we're gonna have Walter awkwardly develop suddenly rapid memory dementia and like short-term memory loss. And every single time there's a character, they have to go, "Come on, Walter, don't you remember me? It's me, Astrid Farnsworth." And it just, I think that choice really overdoes the like Walter dementia story in a way that feels bad. Like, I think that you shouldn't use Walter's like mental health as a way. Like, there's the end of the episode is a great use of it, where it's like he was in, when he was in the mental hospital for like a really long time, this guy would sing "Row, row, row your boat" every night before bed, and that was like really scary and weird to him, but it eventually helped him sleep. And now when Peter does it, he can sleep. That's like fine. But this, like, I suddenly don't remember. Did we do something? We had a mission? What is the pattern? It's like, come on, guys, we're on episode 2. You don't have to do it again.
Yeah, right.
And it just, every time we get to a Walter scene where he's like asking for what's going on, I'm like, can you just stop explaining what we already know and like tell me new stuff? So it felt like the season long plot was kind of like chugging to a halt as a result of this feeling like a second pilot. I think that was my biggest like storytelling issue with it. I do see also like the metaphor of our main villain here, what the heck's his name, Christopher Penrose, being like a metaphor for like predatory men, right? He hurts people, infects them, acts like he's normal so that he can take them home and sleep with them so that he can have eternal life. Like there's something there about like the power that men control over women. And it's turned into this absurd super soldier plot that like really, if this feels early, it feels early to go to super soldiers, maybe I'm not meeting Fringe on its terms right now, but like if you're going to do super soldiers in episode 2, like where are we going from here? And so I felt mixed about that too. Those are my two biggest complaints.
Yeah. I want to respond to those in reverse order. So because I'm totally with you on the second point. It felt like there is a there with the like patriarchal, because also like it's his dad creator guy who's enabling him to prey on these women and like taught him how to do it to sustain himself essentially. And so that's part of it. And I do think that they're trying to make something out of that, but all of the female characters feel they're here and then they're gone. And we see him prey upon, I think, 3 different women over the course of the episode.
Yes.
Yeah. In a way that I don't know. It just doesn't feel like we quite sit with how awful that is, or I don't know. It felt a little flippant to me. But I do think the father-son thing, they're trying to do something, and I also like how that mirrors Walter and Peter and makes us question things about them. And I think they're also trying to continue on the way that they set up Olivia Benson. No, that's what's it called? Different show. What's her last name? Olivia Dunham.
Olivia Benson is Mariska Hargitay's character on SVU.
In SVU, yeah.
Olivia Dunham.
Olivia Dunham.
Olivia Dunn.
Olivia Dunn. They're kind of continuing off of Olivia Dunham, the protagonist, like we did all this stuff in the first episode where she was essentially she had this internal affairs case with Lance Reddick's buddy and the way that he was preying on women. And so the second episode is kind of continuing those themes. So I see the effort here. And I think it's like a little bit mismanaged, but it's an interesting effort nonetheless. The Walter stuff, I agree. It's like kind of ham-fisted.
I still love Walter.
Yeah.
Dude's making popcorn during the most crucial action scene of the episode.
The one thing I really like about, there are 2 moments that I really like about the Walter memory stuff.
Yeah.
The first is when they're seeing this old colleague of his, and the guy is like, look, we did some bad mad science experiments, and I heard that he went to jail, and that is like the best thing that ever happened to humanity, because that guy is freaking scary.
Yes.
And this dude's lying through his teeth because he's still a creepy science guy and pretending like he's not. But I believe him when he says that it was a good thing for humanity that Walter is like not doing his science experiments anymore.
Yeah.
And so that makes us wonder, oh God, well, I'm amused by Walter. I like him. He's very helpful, and I'm kind of sad that he doesn't have his memories. But what would happen if he did have them, and what would he be doing? And
right,
what kind of evil would he be, perpetrating in the world? So that is kind of interesting to me. And the other moment I really liked is at the end of the episode where he pulls Olivia aside and he's like, hey, so we both know a secret about my son.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, huh? No, we don't. He says, oh, huh, okay. Anyway, bye. It's such a good way to plant a seed for, well, what the heck is up with Peter? Is he like a clone or something? What's the secret here? So I was also bothered by the kind of ham-fisted, it's episode 2, so we need to ask everybody what their name is again stuff.
Yeah.
And it also showed me that there are ways that they could then use this going forward for more interesting story development, I think.
Yeah, I love a main character who we know, but we actually don't know. I think that, like, we're now establishing that Walter has done some wild stuff with his former partner, and maybe a lot of that stuff is highly illegal and highly suspicious, and we shouldn't just think of him as, like, funny, cool old man. But for now, he's, you know, reciting prime numbers in his sleep and, you know, falling asleep to Row Row Your Boat, and has a maybe improving relationship with his son, maybe not. That final shot, the, like, quick flash at the end of the episode, has two guys that look like the villain from this one. And so I was like, someone's cloning something, dude. Like, something is up fundamentally in this world that makes me feel so slimy. I really like it. I really like that, like, we don't know what Peter's condition is. We don't know what Walter's past is like. We don't know what's actually going on at Massive Dynamic, other than that scene in the waiting room, which turns out to be a nightmare from Olivia, where she's talking to... I'm going to stop calling him Lance Reddick. I want to look up Lance Reddick's character's name. Hold on.
They said his name once in the episode, and I was like, I should write that down. And I didn't.
Are you ready? Are you so ready to... Philip Broyles.
Broyles. That's right. Broyles.
She's talking about... I think she's talking to Broyles. And they're in, like, the waiting room at MD, and, like, the background keeps transforming. It's like a Windows XP screensaver where it turns, like, red. And I was like... I said this in episode 1, especially about the Massive Dynamic building, but, like, the show, even in its most boring scenes, looks so cool and interesting, and unlike anything else that, like, I can appreciate even a boring exposition scene, or in that case, like, a pretty down the plate nightmare scene where Olivia, he's like, did you have sex with John, you know, before he died? And she's like, yeah, obviously. And he's like, did you get pregnant? And she's like, I don't think so. Oh, good. And I was like, this is another metaphor that the episode is going for, is, like, I know a lot of women in my life who see the act of pregnancy as like a body horror thing. Right, and I, you know, that's like a common thing in storytelling, is like the idea of another body being inside your body. So I think that horror also was fairly effective, if not just tropey. I feel mixed about it, but I thought that, like, visually that stuff looks very good. Also more Boston, dude. This is so fun that we have a show that takes place.
Yeah. When they're like, oh, I know that bridge. It's in Stoughton. I was like, hell like, yeah.
I took CVS training at Stoughton. I was there. It is full of construction sites. I was actually just in Worcester this past week. Worcester, and it's also all construction. There's a lot of outer, like, city limits parts of Boston and towards the west that are just like that, if people are curious what the state is like. And they are, like, tracking him based on, like, what town in Mass he's in, and I was like, oh my god, these are all places I know. This is great. The Fringe division, by the way, is located in the Boston Federal Building. I've never heard it called that. It's called the John Hancock Tower. That's great. That's another great, like, of course, that's the perfect place to put it. And it's also, like, the most stereotypical place to put it, because the Hancock Tower is, like, the biggest, one of the, if not the biggest skyscraper in Boston. Yeah. Some other notes, though. Broyles, by the way, delivering the wildest lines ever with so much calm heat. He describes when he's telling Olivia about the child, he says, it was growing before their eyes. And you're like, what the fuck? What do you mean? That's scary. He's so cool. I have to shout her out, but the woman who plays Lorraine, the girl from the club at the top of the episode, is actually Betty Gilpin, who plays Sister Simone on Mrs. Davis, a show that was so good, but literally only Pat and I watched, and nobody else, except I think Nick is trying to watch it now. We love Mrs. Davis. It's a really good show, you guys. What if Damon Lindelof and other people made a show that had the sensibility of, like, a Douglas Adams book, but with the emotional sincerity of a Lindelof script? That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. It got one season and it ended, and it was very good. It's on Peacock, though, unfortunately. But okay. Anyway, she's the main character in that, so she got a good role after being Dead Girl #1 on Fringe. Some other notes. I mentioned the screensaver room. I mentioned Walter making popcorn. In that last action scene, though, when Peter is trying to, like, you know, bring the woman back to life, because Walter's like, do you have any cocaine? He's like, no. And he's like, damn, I wish you had cocaine. So you could just give that to her.
So funny.
Walter just says the wildest shit, and he's like, all right, well. But he makes a makeshift defibrillator by putting two metal like discs on her chest and then weighing them down with books. I was like, that's so smart. I loved that. And when it works and Peter's all excited, I was like, I love seeing that actor like be happy, because so much of Peter's arc is like being annoyed or confused or angry. I think that's my main stuff. Olivia gets offered a job at Master Dynamics, probably is going to decline it. Broyles is curious about it, and Peter has something up in his medical history. Do we think he's a clone?
I mean, the fact that they're not telling us now means that it can't be the same thing as the guy in this.
Yeah.
Like he can't just be like a rapidly aged guy whose the aging is paused.
Yeah, that'd be boring.
So it's got to be something else that's like equally or even more so shocking, but is not the same thing. So like clone could make sense, or I don't know what else it could be, to be honest.
And that's great. The fact that we don't know, and I have not looked it up yet.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just look it up to ruin this for myself.
No.
What? No. Okay. Fair enough. Any stray notes on Fringe, Michelle?
I like when Broyles is telling Olivia, like, wake up, you gotta go to this thing. She says, waking up's not going to be a problem, but thank you for the gentle nudge. Walter is enamored with a seat warmer. He says, I've never seen a feature like this before. It warms your ass. Wonderful. That's good.
Power of a good seat warmer.
He milks the cow at one point. A lot of people said the word pituitary in this episode.
It's like a joke in one scene, actually.
There's a great line when they're going to scan the retina for the image imprinted on it. And he's like inspired by the Jules Verne story. And his son.
But not the one you're thinking of.
Yeah, and the son, Peter's like, come on, it's a work of fiction. And then Walter turns to him and very seriously he goes, when was it you lost your imagination, son?
I love Walter.
Yeah, so pretty good.
Two comments on the goofs section of the wiki. I shouldn't read this wiki, by the way. It's full of spoilers. I got to be very careful. I'm fine so far, but it says Stoughton, Massachusetts is completely landlocked and has no bridges. It is also several miles away from Sudbury, Mass.
Oh no, we should have caught that.
Should have caught that. I was gonna say I definitely know bridges because I never saw one, and I saw most of Stoughton when I drove through it, but I thought maybe they just found one that I didn't notice. And then when Olivia hands Peter her backup gun in the warehouse, this one's so nerdy. She hands her the backup gun and she tells him the safety is on the right. The handgun is a Glock 26, which actually does not have a manual safety.
All right, goodbye.
I love gun nerds so much. They're doing God's work, but also...
No, they're not. What? No, that's the very wrong
they're doing the devil's work. They're doing the devil's work.
I do not love gun nerds. No.
I know a lot of gun nerds who aren't into... I guess, okay, whatever. Complicated topic. Not germane here.
That's a yum I'm willing to yuck.
Okay, fine. Fair enough. Would you... like to someday, if you could be an actor or an extra in a show, would you want to play the desiccated 80-year-old corpse on the hospital floor?
Yeah, I want that to be my last role, please.
Yeah, I think that'd be perfect. Oh, sorry, I got a minor spoiler on the wiki. I'm sorry, but it's so cool. Oh, god damn it, it was so cool, you guys.
You gotta be careful on that wiki because there's some wild stuff.
Yeah. Oh, you've seen some stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like when we first piloted Fringe, there's some stuff. Yeah.
Oh,
just be careful. Just be careful.
Yeah, thank you.
Like, even it's one of those shows where even if you look at like the page for one of the main characters, it'll be like, oh, so and so is fucking whatever, and you're like, what are you talking about? No.
Yeah. Or it'll say, yeah. There's other stuff I could say that even just saying it would be like, how they spoil things on there.
Right.
The most famous example of this that I think you'll like is A More Civilized Age just finished up KOTOR 1, and the people among them who had not played the game before were asked to never look at the wiki because basically every single page on the wiki references the biggest spoiler in the game by naming people.
Right.
And it's like, come on, seriously? Yeah.
That's fine.
But neither here nor there. Let's take a quick break, quick musical break, and we'll be back to make our final decision on Death Note versus Fringe. Welcome back to Couch Madness. I'm still Alan, and that is still Magellan. Welcome, sir.
Hey.
Hey. Can I get a hey? Yeah, put a little English on it.
Hey. How do you say hey with an English accent? Hey.
Hi. They don't say hey. That's why they don't use that term very often.
Hello. Hey.
Hey. Oh,
Hey.
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 Now, can you give me it in like you just ran like 2 miles and you're here to tell me something urgent?
Hey. Sorry.
Okay, now one more. Can you give me we're on a date and you really want me to think you're cool?
Hey.
Ooh, that was so good. Ah, man, thank you. Okay, hey. That's how I would do that last one. A little flirty, little dirty, flirty, and thriving.
Yeah, that's great.
We're here to make a decision. We just, before recording, we're like, I don't think I have a gut check. I don't think either of us has a gut check.
No.
But you have to have a gut check, Magellan. We have a foolproof scheme to deciding.
Okay, I think I have one.
Okay, yes. Ideally, the gut check shouldn't require too much thought. That's the idea of a gut check. So, I started last week. You go first. What's your gut check? Fringe or Death Note?
Gut check is Fringe.
Okay.
For me, Fringe was a show that I was excited to explore coming into this season. I think it was even my prediction to win it all, and the second episode was good enough and interesting enough to confirm that this is a show that would reward me for investing more into it. It's not like the best second episode that we've watched in this round, I don't think, but it like delivered on the promises of the show enough that I'm like, okay, I want to see it get to an episode 3 so that I can make a big decision, because to me it seems like a show that could be really great for a full long chat season.
Agreed.
And that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm there too. I have to be honest. I think you made a really good point up top or in part 1 that you rewatching Death Note doesn't necessarily that's not like thrilling to you because you've already seen literally all of it. And I do think for sure there is an anime out there for us to cover someday, but and I'm not saying it's out yet, obviously, but Death Note's a show I should just watch, and will probably watch when I have an anime spot free in my viewing time, and I'll tell you guys all about it. But Magellan literally knows everything that's going to happen. He knows who wins, he knows who loses, he knows who dies. And I think that's kind of a downsell for me, but maybe people disagree when we could talk more about the specifics of them. Let's do our foolproof method then, because we both have gut checks of Fringe.
Okay, cool. So we'll start with the meme, schemes, screams, and themes, which had more moments of ironic or semi-ironic silliness.
I guess that's Fringe. I don't consider Death Note to be a very ironic show. Maybe
I disagree, but
okay.
I think it's a matter of interpretation.
Yeah.
But I'll go with Fringe on that. Schemes, moments of intrigue and plot movement. I mean, that's Death Note, right?
That's definitely Death Note.
Excitement and surprise. Tough.
For me, that was Death Note, because at every scene I was like, what? That's bananas. Nothing was predictable.
Yeah. Themes, which are more moments addressing what the show is about. That's hard.
Because what is Fringe about?
Well, what is Death Note about? I'm going to give it to Death Note just because I think Fringe is a little shakier on this thematically, because it's trying to do so much exposition.
That's true. It's really true.
All right, characters: clunks, hunks, junks, and punks. Characters that were dorkier in a fun way. That's Fringo.
Yeah.
Had the clunks. The hunks, I gotta give that to Death Note.
Are you okay giving that to Death Note when they're both teenagers?
It's more, I mean,
I saw you
sort
delete the letter D.
I'm thinking about that big kind of script letter L is the hunk to me.
That's a character.
Oh gosh, they're sort of a hunky L.
Because it's a character, the letter is a character.
Yeah, right, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So characters, yeah. The Junks, characters that were more eccentric. Fuck, that's a tough call. Because Fringe takes it on dorky, but everybody's eccentric in this round.
This is a match of eccentrics.
Yeah. I want to say Fringe on this.
It has more characters that are eccentric in a fun way, sure. Death Note just happens to have 2 of the most eccentric characters in media.
I will say, once you meet L more and you meet L in person, this Death Note would win.
Really?
But you just L's a weird guy.
Seems like a weird barefoot gay frog or something.
Yeah. But I think Fringe takes it without that information. The punks, Death Note?
Yeah, definitely.
Rebellious? Yeah.
Definitely.
All right, the clues, crews, hues, and shoes. Clues, more plot to explore and unravel over time. Tough call.
More plot. There's probably a lot of plot in Death Note, but I'm leaning Fringe on that one.
Yeah. Because Death Note, it's really, at this point, it's just like, there's not so much more plot. It's just who's going to win the battle. But Fringe, It's like, what? There's a pattern? There's Peter? That kind of thing. The crews, ensemble dynamics. I kind of want to say Death Note, like the L Light rivalry is so fun. And I honestly, there aren't a lot of ensemble dynamics that I'm super interested in Fringe right now. I don't know about you, but like the Peter Olivia relationship is not very interesting to me.
Yeah, and the fact that I already know like that's gonna be a romance too, I'm like,
yeah,
boring. Wee-wah.
Yeah, it's a little wee-wah.
Oh my god, I just
Thematic
remembered
range. What'd you remember?
The cast of the 2017 Death Note, the live action Death Note, is so bananas.
We'd have to watch that if we watch Death Note.
Yeah. Oh my god, I'll tell you after.
Okay.
Fuck, that actually made it harder. Which has more thematic range? The themes, or I guess thematic range. This is different.
I guess it's like, this should be like tonal range, really, is how we've been interpreting it.
Yeah, I think so. Because it thematic is more similar to themes from earlier.
Yeah.
I think Fringe, yeah. Tonal range,
Fringe. Yeah. I think that's Fringe. Shoes, more mileage from the base premise.
This one's unfair because Fringe is a villain of the week and Death Note doesn't really
have. Yeah, Death Note can only last so long before it's like, come on,
figure it out.
One of them's gotta die. Figure it out.
Yeah.
Fits, hits, its, and wits. The fits, better use of costumes and props.
Death Note.
Yeah. The hits, the music. Did music stick out to you in either of these?
No. You don't like the Death Note theme song?
It's fine. The ending is notable, but it's kind of dull.
Okay.
Kind of mid.
I'm gonna allow it.
But I think it still wins music. Death Note still wins music, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
It's better use of the cast and guests. It's kind of a unfair one for Death Note. But I guess it's Fringe. I thought that guy, the evil scientist guy, was pretty good.
The dad?
Yeah, the evil dad.
With the weird kind of German accent? Yeah, he was solid.
Yeah.
Solid.
I was fucking with that guy. I like when he gave his son a nice tender hug. That was nice.
I liked it when his son was like, "I'm fucking dead, bro."
So good. The wits, which makes better use of the script and writing.
That's Death Note. That's absolutely Death Note. This is a beautifully written script.
All right, so if we tally that up, that's 9-7. Death Note with 9, Fringe with 7.
Now let's think seriously about this.
Yeah, let's go through the deliberation process, because I came into this really not sure. Even prior to, in a lot of the matchups prior to watching the episodes, I sort of have like a preference, and then the episodes either confirm my preference or sway me in the other direction. And I guess my preference was Fringe, but like not super strongly. And I do think the Death Note second episode was better than the Fringe second episode.
That's true.
It's just a matter of like, which one I want to watch episode 3 of and which one I would want to watch a whole show of. It's tough. I don't know. And I don't want to take the wind out of Death Note's sails too much by talking about how I've seen it before, because it is entertaining to watch the show go through its mechanics. And I did have fun looking at it the second time, being like, okay, but what does this mean? Can I extract some kind of like transferable significance from this story besides it just being an entertaining duel between these two characters? And it had more there for me than I was expecting. But there is also a part of me that's like, I know that I'm watching Death Note because I want to get to the part where it's bad and watch that part again. And that's like not the sexiest reason to watch more of a show.
I think part of the appeal now for me is about Fringe is that neither of us have seen it, and while we have like minor spoilers, neither of us, I don't think, has like the biggest stuff. Do you have the big stuff spoiled for you already? Okay, let me correct my sentence.
Pretty big thing spoiled for me, but it's one of those things where it's like, I want to see that. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, same. The one thing I have is like, I just want to see that. That doesn't tell me anything about like who the bad guys really are. It's just like, whoa, that's a creative.
Right.
It's like about a detail of things that are happening in the show. So that's fun to me. We're never going to cover Lost on the podcast. So, getting to watch a mystery show for the first time together would be fun. And I also know who wins between L and Light. Like, that's a well-known ending. So.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I think I do.
Interesting.
Hold on. I'm going to text you. I'm going to DM you on Discord.
I'm not going to confirm or deny.
You're just gonna read that.
Interesting.
That's what I understand. So like
interesting.
I was gonna say, can you tell the listener if I'm right, but that doesn't that doesn't work. Unless I take my headphones off. So that's a factor. But I also really want to see Nisa and Roy Penber, and I won't get to see either of them soon if we don't do Death Note. I just like seeing new characters. But I also like, no one's doing Fringe. There's no like first time Fringe watch pods.
Yeah, right.
People do anime podcasts. People have seen Death Note.
Yeah.
Fuck. Okay.
Yeah.
I know.
I don't know. Yeah, I think the thing that I want to come out of this conversation is let's have a more substantial conversation at some point about like us doing anime and what that would look like and what shows we might want to consider. I'm not gonna tell you what my vote is, of course. I think in my heart I know that Death Note for me is not the show that I want to see win Couch Madness. If it did win, I would be along for that ride, and it's 37 episodes. You divide that in half and do math that I don't feel like doing right now. It's about 4 months or so, 4 to 5 months of watching a kind of cool anime. Like, sure, that sounds fun. I enjoy doing a television show with my best friend, and I would like to watch that. But I think for me, it's like not the most desirable winner of this competition, and it's also not the most bang for my buck 37 episode show. It's not the most intriguing anime to watch for Chatz. So there's just a lot of metrics by which, from my perspective, again, not telling you my vote, but from my perspective, Death Note is like kind of an underwhelming winner. And it makes me want to investigate, well, is there something that is like in the same zone or has that same shape that could be covered or could be, looked at in a different way in our format or whatever. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about this matchup right now.
There's, I think, let's vote and then I'll say my piece about this.
Okay.
Because I think I know what's going to win. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, guys, it's time to vote. Fringe or Death Note in 3, 2, 1, go. Nice. Magellan picked correctly. He picked the X-Files. That's right, folks. Magellan is restarting the Chatz Files with Season 1, Episode 1, pilot.
Yeah, let's just start it all over.
You're gonna get drawn and quartered.
Fringe. Fringe.
Fringe wins it. Okay. I'm gonna watch Death
What's your
Note
piece?
when I can,
Okay.
hopefully soon,
Okay.
and tell you guys all about my thoughts on it. There is an anime out there for us. I think it has to be something that neither of us has seen, that is, not too repetitive and not too long. And I think that we will find that. I have so many anime friends that can help us do that. And I know people that want, like me, to watch Death Note and want to do anime podcasts, but like that's a crowded field of anime podcasts. And I think Fringe has way more meat on the bone for the two of us to chew on. And at its core, what people often tell us they like the most about Chatz is when we watch their favorite obscure shows, having never seen them before ourselves. Yeah. So I think that's what makes Fringe feel good to me and makes it a real contender for the finals.
Well, I mean, here's what I'll say is Death Note is like pure popcorn, throw it on in the background kind of show.
Yeah.
So I'd be happy to just say like the two of us are gonna kind of watch it where and when we can and check back in once we've watched it, whenever that happens to be, and we could have a discussion about it. Like I'd be down to do that. If there's not like a timetable on it and there's not it's 2 episodes a week or whatever. Or if it just ends up being that you watch it and we talk about it. That's fine too. But I think what I'm realizing is like the 2 episode a week format is not really how I want to do it.
Yeah, I want to devour.
I wouldn't even. Yeah, just like I want to binge it. I want to eat it up. I want to talk about like the broad strokes and the overall arc of it. So yeah, almost like a should you watch kind of thing or something like that.
Watch the whole thing and just tell you about it.
Yeah, and talk about it I think the should you watch approach is actually the right thing, like breaking up the segments. Okay, let's talk about this arc. All right, well now let's do the spoilers for this arc, because that show really the should you watchness of it, in my mind, that conversation is very different arc to arc of Death Note. So that's like the format we've done that I think would fit it the best, but not the sort of main feed 2 episodes a week thing.
Amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm love it. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba, I'm love it.
Well, that brings us to the end of round 2 of Couch Madness. Can you believe that?
No way, dude. Seriously? Dead acidly?
Dead acidly. And so we the next time that we do a matchup, which is going to be in a little bit, and I'll talk about what's coming up next on the feed very soon. But the next time we do a matchup, we're going to be starting the semifinals. And the first matchup of the semifinals, Stargate SG-1 versus Xena Warrior Princess. Golly gee.
2 things about that one. Oh, sorry. What's the other one?
No, go ahead.
Number 1, many people have told us that the 3rd episode of SG-1 is the literal worst episode of the series. Okay. I think we should consider, if we have the time, also watching episode 4. I don't know if that's unfair to Xena, though.
I am open to either. I wouldn't want to watch 2 episodes of one show and only one of the other. I don't think that's fair. I would potentially be open to like a best 2 out of 3 for semifinal and final matchups kind of thing, which would extend the season but would give us more time to consider what are going to be some pretty difficult matchups. So we could do that, or we could do 2 episodes each for both of the matchups. So that's a lot of TV for us to watch.
Yeah.
So my opinion is either like Stargate just kind of has to eat that, or in the semifinals and the finals we do best 2 out of 3. And so like one week it's the first week of the matchup, next week it's the second week of the matchup, and if we have to go to a 3rd week, we do that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm leaning Stargate has to deal with it. I think it's
okay.
I know it's an extenuating circumstance, but it made it this far on mostly goodwill and a good ensemble, and I don't think even its worst episode will like destroy those things. Also, if it wins, not to say like Forged in the Fire, but like if it wins on its worst episode, then that show is such a keeper in the finals.
Yeah. So Stargate versus Xena will be our next matchup, and then Battlestar Galactica versus Fringe will be our other semifinals.
Oh God, 33
contender
versus
round.
Fringe episode 3. What the hell is Fringe episode 3 even about? I hope it's good because that's gonna be hard.
I don't know, but it's gonna have a rough time against the best episode of Battlestar Galactica. I mean, maybe that's another reason why we should do a 2 out of 3 thing.
Yeah.
If famously one of these shows' worst episodes is their third, and one of these shows' best episodes is their third, maybe it's worth a little more data. I don't know. People can let us know what they think about that.
Sounds good.
But you're not going to hear those matchups for a little bit on the feed because there's a couple other things that we're going to do first. So our next episode is on the 6-week rotation that we're doing now for Trek Chats, the month-and-a-half rotation. And so our next Trek Chats episode is going to cover the other 2 Star Trek The Next Generation films, Insurrection and Nemesis. I had an idea, Alan. You can cut this out if you don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I had an idea for that episode because those movies are like okay, maybe, or one of them's bad. How would you feel about also covering a 1999 film about the crew of a spaceship going on an adventure that's kind of like a send-up of these Star Trek movies, and we watch Galaxy Quest as well?
Tasty. The last time I watched Galaxy Quest, I had watched no TNG. So
yeah.
Oh, I'm kind of down to clown. Just an excuse to watch Galaxy Quest again. That movie's so damn good.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm down.
Okay, great. So we'll be covering on that episode Insurrection, Nemesis, and Galaxy Quest, which is very fun.
I'm so Couch Madness brained, by the way, that I was like, that's unfair to the... Wait, there's no matchup.
And so that'll release... let me just make sure I have my release calendar in front of me. That'll release on February 25th. And then we won't have an episode release on March 3rd because we're going to release something on February 29th, a couple days earlier. That's right. Leap Chats episode 1 on Leap Day. Okay? That's coming up. And then the Couch Madness semifinals will resume as the prophecy foretold in the month of March. Couch Madness becomes March Madness. On March 10th, you'll get the first semifinals matchup, Stargate versus Xena. So look forward to that.
Wait, does Couch Madness end in March?
Yes, unless we do a best 2 out of 3 thing, and then I would extend into April. Yeah.
Oh my heavens! Also, we'll have to work out scheduling. That'll be a busy month for both of us. But
okay.
Anyways,
yeah, we'll figure it out.
Hoi!
So some fun stuff coming up on the feed. A couple weeks away from the bracket competition before we are back to close it all out and see who wins, who dies,
who loses, and who dies. Yeah.
Season 16. Yeah. Great. Cool. I can take us to the plug zone, if that sounds good to you.
Let's do it, big man. You got to ask me some questions.
Yeah. Where can people find you elsewhere on the internet?
You can find me on a few other podcasts. I'm on The Guarded Wager, which is a great storytelling tabletop Korean game show podcast that I do with my friend Six and Nick on Scanline Media. We just started covering The Devil's Plan, and that episode will be coming out within a month or so. The Devil's Plan is fantastic if you're curious. It's a great Korean game show just from one episode. You can also hear me on The Creature Quorum. You can hear me on Talking Marketing every other month at AMA Boston. I do a lot of podcasts. Some say I should do less of them. Some say I'm doing just enough of them. I don't know. But that's mostly where you can find me. I don't use my personal social media, or I don't give it out that often. I keep it private. What about you?
You can find me on another podcast called Super Smash Echoes that I do with my friend Justin, where we discuss video games related to the Super Smash Brothers franchise, Super Smash Echoes. And you can also read some of my writing on my Substack at notthatmagellan.substack.com. Speaking of websites and things and stuff that you can do to do that, you can get in touch with the show in a few ways. You can email us at chatspod@gmail.com with questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, votes on these various matchups, things you want us to discuss, talking points, etc. You can follow us at Chatspod on X. You can check out our episodes on YouTube, Chatz, a television podcast there on YouTube. The whole show is on YouTube now, and that's pretty cool. You can rate us wherever you find us. So, for example, if you're on YouTube and you want to like and subscribe, or if you use Apple Podcasts or something else that has stars or reviews or things, all of that is greatly appreciated. Helps people find the show, helps people know that the show is good. We think it's good. We hope you think so too, especially if you've listened this far. It'd be a shame if you were just kind of like, this show sucks and I'm going to listen to every minute of it. Yeah, I'd rather you listen to something you liked. Anyway, if you want to support the show with money, you can do so at patreon.com/chatspod at $1, $3, or $5 a month. $1 a month gets you right into the Discord, where we talk about all sorts of stuff. The kind of stuff we talk about here, we talk about there with more people, and it's fun. $3 a month gets you twice monthly bonus content on the Patreon. And starting this year, in the year of 2024, we're doing a bit of a shift to Patreon content where one episode a month is listener suggested, a la the way that we were doing those Chats in a Pickle episodes during the WGA and the SAG strikes, where someone will suggest us 2 hours of something and we'll do it. And then the other episode in the month is chosen by us, or it's just kind of a hangout podcast between the two of us.
Before I forget, we've been trying to decide how to get that feedback. And we had people ask, like, where do you want that? I think the easiest solution for us is going to be we, through the Patreon account, send out a DM to each person, just like it could be the same message. Hey, we want to know what your pick is. And then we use the Patreon DMs as a way. So keep an eye out on your Patreon DMs or your emails to see if you've been asked, hey, what do you want to put on the wheel?
Great. And then $5 a month patrons get thanked right here at the end of every episode. Special thanks to Stefan, Six, Noel, Pat, and Great Gift Nick of the Brothers at Infinite War, my mom, May Louise, Marcus, Lee, Kyrie, Justin, Jen, Felicia, Emrys, and Arthur. Thank you, folks, for supporting the show. Thank you also to @ChemIllustrator for our podcast art. Now it's time, Alan, for our Chatsums, which is something special for folks to snack on between now and next time. What's your Chatsum for this week?
I'm still doing that Oscar thing I told you about, but I don't want to keep recommending movies because people are getting sick of it. And by people, I mean me, my brain. I have a book to recommend, though. I finally started a new book this year. It's called We Won't Be Here Tomorrow and Other Stories. This is a book by author and editor Margaret Killjoy. It's a series of short stories. So far, I haven't found a connecting thread. There's stuff that's real world. There's some heavy sci-fi. There's some absurdist fantasy. It's very queer. Margaret Killjoy is a trans woman, and she writes a little bit about that experience. But it's also got some horror stuff, some yearning, some romance, some fantasy. It's a grab bag of different genres, and it's really, really good so far. It's a pretty short read also. It came out a year and a half ago, and I'm feeling comfortable giving it a recommend. So that's We Won't Be Here Tomorrow and Other Stories by Margaret Killjoy. What about you, John?
I got to give it up this week to Honey Nut Cheerios. Had a bowl of that stuff yesterday, a bowl of it this morning. It's a good cereal.
That damn bee. I feel like that bee's horny.
Hey, I'm horny after I eat a bowl of that.
Ew.
Come on.
Okay, fine. There.
Why is that bee dead in this thing you sent me? Supporting bee colony collapse. Oh, no. Really?
There were, or maybe still are, GMOs in Honey Nut Cheerios. I don't mean to cancel your chat sub.
Oh, boy.
It's okay, John. I also really love some HNC. Hillary Rodham Clinton. Get out of here. Take me home.
Honey Nut Cheerio to the polls is what I say.
That's good. That's good. That's the end of the podcast, guys. Thank you to Magellan, Jeffrey, Fluke for being the L to my light, because one of us is clearly going to kill the other one in a heated, romantic, passionate moment. Passion. And thank you all so much for listening to this episode of Couch Madness. Goodbye.
Bye.